hello, hello, hello.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. tonight. C.L. is in North Carolina with a Freedom Works tour, but we'll be back in the studio next week. And I've got Michelle in here with me, and today is Wednesday, the 18th of January. 2 more days to the inauguration.
It's a special day. January 18th is when Walter Winchell first got on the radio. Is that why you wanted to be on tonight? He was on the New York Daily Mirror. He was a columnist. Walter Winchell in 1929 debuted on the radio.
Well,
so you and Walter look alike.
Yeah,
People
about the same age.
Sound alike. Yeah, same age.
Yeah. So good old Walter Winchell. Well, Michelle, I don't know about you, but I'm still trying to recover from the Dallas Cowboy loss over the weekend.
Well, that's why you wouldn't be on the show Tuesday night, because you were just still pouting.
I was distraught, but I will say I was proud of our Louisiana connections, Morris Claiborne and Dak Prescott. It was one of those games where both teams deserve to win, and I know you can't have it that way. Aaron Rodgers did an incredible job, the catch at the end, and then the field goal kicker for the Packers. But
let's talk about what really matters: the Cowboys.
Because
we don't care a lick about Green Bay.
I mean,
who
wears
like
cheese
them
on
now.
their head?
Nobody here. And if you're listening in Wisconsin, we still don't like them. So listen anyway. But those two young men, and a lot of people are listening to this show, don't live in North Louisiana. And I think a lot of people find it ironic that we're Cowboys fans and we live in Louisiana, but we're right on the border.
Well, and for years, and I know you're not old enough to remember this, but for years, the Dallas Cowboys was the only professional game we got on TV. So we have all grown up watching the Dallas Cowboys and Roger Staubach and Tom Landry and all of the folks from the past. And so you can't help but root. I mean, I love the New Orleans Saints, but I love the Dallas Cowboys too.
Well, because you've been watching them for so long. Another unique thing about today. In 1976, this was Super Bowl X, and this is not a good thing, but it's a true statement, so I have to bring it up. Pittsburgh beat the Cowboys in Miami 21-17 on January 18th, 1976. Oof, that's why we don't like Pittsburgh. But on that Cowboys team, we do have two young men that we are very proud of. And let's talk about Claiborne for just a moment. People around the country, they know he's from here, so he graduated from Fair Park High School. But the graduation rate at Fair Park High School is so low. They work so hard at that school to make it better. And he didn't just graduate. He played football, and now he's in the NFL, and I'm hoping next year is in the Super Bowl.
Well, I don't think there's any question that Dallas has a good shot now that they have between their defense and their offense and their new quarterback. It's going. And
we want to give a shout out to that new quarterback, Dak Prescott, 24 years old.
Hot in Louisiana.
Making
State.
us proud. Now, I don't like that he was at Mississippi State. He should have gone to LSU.
Yep.
But making us proud, his character under pressure. His faith, that's what we are here. We are a bastion of solid values. And these two young men, Claiborne and Dak Prescott, they exemplify that. So if you're listening, which I think they do listen, Mike.
Do they?
Go Cowboys, regardless. We are always the best. Well, another thing that made you sad over the weekend, and that's why you just couldn't come in, from the Cowboys loss to the loss of the circus.
Yeah, and I know times they are changing, and we have to adapt. But I think removing the circus elephants last year. I mean, I grew up with the circus. Michelle, I don't know if you did.
Were in the circus.
Well, I could have been.
You used to be in the circus.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your thing? You worked with the monkeys.
And I was one of the clowns in the car too.
Yeah, and you fit into that car.
I do.
How old? You're 4'11". Yeah.
Yeah. But, it's a shame because I can remember as a child, I mean, we went to the circus every year, and I loved going to the circus and seeing all of the animals and seeing the trapeze artist and the clowns.
Which is wonderful that you have that sentiment. What exactly do you miss about it? People, whenever there's change, people just get upset for the fact that it's change. And we're all human and we all have that feeling, but we have to also be analytical about things. So why do you think that the circus closed?
Well, I think the circus closed because at times they are a changing, and families now, growing up, although I was involved in sports and played music, didn't have near the amount of activities that my children had growing up, and then that's been compounded another 10 times by today's kids. I mean, between ballet and soccer and music and t-ball and I mean, it's just a never-ending, and I think families just simply don't have the time to spend or the money to spend, especially with two-income families, and the
well,
TV.
the tickets were not outpricing the economy. But the things that we need to look at is people love animals. Things do progress. We still want to have family time together, and getting next to nature is cool. PETA, you mentioned earlier that PETA had a lot to do with it, which is a group that most of the time we don't agree with, but nobody wants to see animals treated cruelly. Now, and I say that in the United States. I'm glad that most snowflakes don't ever travel outside of this country because they couldn't handle it. And I like how humane that we are. And it's a business. If you don't have tickets being sold, what they needed to do was freshen up for the 21st century. We can't force people to stay in the 20th century.
And they did some things. I mean, they went to minorities for the ringmaster. They went to women for the ringmasters. I mean, the group that owns Barnum and Bailey was trying to address some of the issues.
I think that they needed to look at their product. Okay, just because you change the gender of a ringmaster is not going to draw a family out. The reason they were so big in the 1800s is because you couldn't see it on the internet.
Yeah.
You couldn't see it on TV. You had to see it in person. So I'm talking about content. I would have expected they would have changed up the content and made sure that they worked with PETA to make it. Now, I'm not saying that PETA is rational, but I would have gone that route.
Well, I think PETA in the end is getting what they're wanting. This is Mike Woods. As we go into the break, we have Senator Mike Walsworth, District 33, that is going to be on the phone with us. And then later on, we have Dr. Johnette Magner, Executive Director, Shreveport-Bossier Business Alliance. We're going to talk about upcoming changes to TOPS. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant. Welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant, and I've got Michelle in the studio, and we have Senator Mike Walsworth, District 33.
In Louisiana.
Louisiana State Senator. Welcome, my friend.
Can you hear him?
Mike, you there?
Mike? Can you hear me? Hey, Mike? Yeah, we can't hear him. We have to start again. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Make sure you say Louisiana.
Is that better?
There you go. We got you now, buddy.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, we're getting ready to
Can
start
we start
over.
from the beginning? Yeah. I know you're nervous.
Is that good?
Yeah, talk some more. Say hi and.
Test. Test 1, 2, 3. Mike Woods, how you doing, brother?
I'm all right, brother. How are you?
Okay, Louisiana State Legislature. Okay, you got to remember you were talking to people out of town. Start.
Okay, we're starting over, Michael. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have Senator Mike Walsworth, District 33, Louisiana State Senator, on the phone. Michael, how are you, my friend?
Again, we can't hear him.
We got him this time. Mike, are you there?
Mike Walsworth?
I was just here.
I'm glad we're not live.
It wouldn't happen live. He's doing something different because he's recording. Troy is in the building.
Yeah.
Are you going to get him?
I just can't hear him at all now.
Are you? And make sure he's still there. Are you still there? You're so patient. Thank you for this. Hold on. Go get Troy, Ruben. I can't keep. Oh, good. Are you there? Shit, I just hung up on him.
You still there? Michelle?
Hey, can you hear us,
Can't
man?
hear you. That sounds better.
Yeah.
Hello?
It was just programmed.
Yep. It's just putting in program 2 and putting their ears in 1 and 2.
Got it.
All right, just 1 second.
I heard somebody say 1 second.
Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have Senator Mike Walsworth, District 33, Louisiana State Senator. Michael, glad to have you, my friend.
Hey, Mike Woods, how you doing?
I'm all right. How you been? You got a good New Year?
I've had a good New Year so far.
Well, it's getting ready to change.
Well, but you're starting off great. You're in D.C. today with a band.
I think that's right. I'm honored to be with my band. West Monroe High School Band is one of 7 high schools in the nation that was invited to march in the inaugural parade on Friday, and we incredibly in 3 weeks raised about $185,000 for them to go. So, but that only happens in rare cases. Can a rural community and a community that really loves each other can pull that kind of thing off in 3 weeks. But it happened, and they had a 22-hour bus ride, and they're enjoying the sights, and they're ready for Friday to come and honor our president.
Well, it's an honor to be chosen. It'll be something the kids will remember for the rest of their life, and I've had the privilege of going to a few inaugurations, and it's part of history. Whether you voted for the man or not, he's still your president, and it's going to be exciting.
Hey, Mike, we're going to have to interrupt real quick. We're going to edit this piece out, but are we on speakerphone or something?
Yeah, I'm fine.
No, we can't hear you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it better, Ruben? Okay, we're going to edit that piece out.
All right, we'll start one more time.
No, we're not going to start. We're just going to keep going, but we'll just cut it out.
Oh, okay.
So you want to talk about the it's the West Monroe High School Band that's going up there?
High School Band.
And y'all raised what, $185,000?
$185,000. About half came from the parents, and the other half came from the community. And we found out about 3 days before Christmas.
Wow.
And how many students is it that's going in that band?
Basically, with all the extra students, the drill team and stuff going, about 225, 230 students going.
And have they ever gone? Has that school? That's an old school.
They went 12 years ago for George Bush's second inauguration.
Well,
so this is not our first rodeo.
Hats off to you for representing Louisiana at the national level. There's been so much controversy.
It's just one of those things. But it should be exciting.
Well, it will be, and let's hope the weather cooperates. I know there's been some crazy weather throughout the United States, but let's hope that that the day
12 years ago, Mike, they had the worst snowstorm in the history of Washington, D.C. But this time it's supposed to be in the 50s, low 50s, and clear is the advanced forecast what I'm hearing. So
good.
That'll be fantastic.
Good.
So in the snowstorm, so you were there. Were you there with the band 12 years ago?
We were there with the band 12 years ago.
It was. So what did they do for the parade in that worst snowstorm?
Well, the parade wound up having better weather, but it's the 2 days that sort of came up to it was unbelievable. I think it was about 8 or 9 inches of snow in Washington, D.C., and just shut the place down. Washington.
Oh, yeah, half an inch.
In the South, so they're not used to all this. They're not used to it.
Yeah, well, our listeners across the country can watch, and they'll get to see the West Monroe High School Parade, and maybe they'll get
7 high school bands. There's not but 10 bands across the nation that are outside the military. Of course, all the military bands will be there. There's only 10 bands outside the military that will perform. And West Monroe is one of 10.
Well, it's an honor, and the kids will, I know, have a good time, and I feel sorry for the chaperones, but anyway, that's another story.
Yeah, they asked me was I going to ride on the 22-hour bus ride. I said that.
Thanks, but no thanks. Well, you've got some interesting things coming up in the legislative session. We have a special session, I believe, that's going to be called coming up.
Yeah, it looks like, again, we struggle in knowing, and Mike, and being in business and the history, if you tax something, people are going to spend less money. And so we're using the same rate that we thought, hey, we'll get more money, and all we're doing is getting less dollars, because when you tax it, people are going, oh, I don't think I need to do that. So we're getting less dollars in. Our economy is still struggling in Louisiana, so we've got to do a better job of trying to figure out our tax base. The first thing we got to do is and I think most people will say, you got to live within your means, and that means.
Well, you and I have to do that on a daily basis with our families, but I don't know why we can't get our government to understand that.
So let's talk about that, though. Let's do specifics about, the gas tax. I mean, Mike wants to talk about that desperately.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, it just amazes me every time I see this idea constantly pop up. I see where we're going to talk about a gas processing tax again.
Mike, what do you think about that? And both of your name, Mike. And both have MW for initials.
Well, truly, we've gone down this road before with the processing tax, and they go, "Oh, don't worry, they can't leave." And I'm just telling you, we've got, and I can probably say, we've got more than enough gasoline capacity in this country that if they took out one refinery, it's not going to make a huge difference. If you think that the refineries in Louisiana are going to stand by and say, "Hey, you're going to give the state of Louisiana an extra $1, $2, $3 billion a year in taxes," we're crazy. And that, first of all, it'll go into litigation. But while they're litigating, they're going to add a little bit of capacity over in Texas, and they'll just shut them down at the end of the day. But there's no way that this is going to happen. So we ought to continue to look at other things. But if we think we're going to get that much out of from an oil processing tax, is just not.
Well, that's what we want to talk about in more depth with Mike Woods too, because our listeners, Mike and Mike, need to call their senators and their representatives. The one side of the aisle says, and everybody knows that we are in a budget shortfall, but you're saying that if you add this tax or surplus, or whatever you want to call it, to the gasoline price, it's going to ultimately affect the industry as a whole in Louisiana, and a large portion of our budget depends on that.
Well, and not only...
And that's
not only...
And that's the gas processing tax is way out there. Now, there's another tax that they're looking at, and that's the governor's going to add for 20 to 30 cents a gallon at the pump gasoline.
Transportation tax. Mike, we're coming up on a break. Let me catch you after the break. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant. We've got Senator Mike Walsworth on the phone, and we'll be back after the break.
When the man comes around, the hairs on your arm will stand up at the terror in each sip and in each sup. Will you partake of that last offered cup?
High schools in the nation that was invited to march in the inaugural parade on Friday, and we incredibly in 3 weeks raised about $185,000 for them to go. So I've had a good New Year so far.
Well, let's get ready
today with a band.
I think that's right. I'm honored to be with my band, West Monroe High School band, and it really loves each other. Can pull that kind of thing off in 3. On Friday, and we marched in the inaugural parade on Friday, and raised about $185,000 for them to go. So, but that only happens in rare.
Well, it's an honor to be chosen.
Yeah, I'm fine.
No, we can't hear you. But can you? Are we on speaker? Are we on speaker? We're going to have to interrupt real quick.
And it's going to be exciting.
Hey, Mike, we're going to have to interrupt real quick. We're going to edit this piece out. But are we on speakerphone or something?
Yeah, I'm fine.
No, we can't hear you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it better, Ruben? Okay, we're going to edit that piece out.
All right, we'll start one more time.
No, we're not going to start. We're just going to keep going, but we'll just cut it out.
Oh, okay.
So you want to talk about the it's the West Monroe High School band that's going up there?
High School band.
And y'all raised what, $185,000?
$185,000. About half came from the parents 12 years ago for George Bush's second inauguration.
Well,
so this is not our first rodeo.
Hats off to you for representing Louisiana at the national level. There's been so much controversy.
Basically, with all the and we found out about 3 days before Christmas.
Wow.
And how many?
Well, it's an honor to be chosen. So you want to talk about the it's the West Monroe High School band that's going up there?
High School band.
And y'all raised what, $185,000?
$185,000. About half came from the parents, and the other half came from the community.
It's the West Monroe High School band that's going up. So you want to talk about the it's the West Monroe High School band that's going up there?
High School band.
And y'all raised what, $185,000?
$185,000. About half came from the parents, and the other half came.
Man or not, he's still your president, and it's going to be exciting. It's the West Monroe High School band that's going up there?
High School band.
And y'all raised what, $185,000?
$185,000. About half came from the parents, and the other.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have Senator Mike Walsworth, District 33, Louisiana State Senator from Monroe. Mike, at the break we were talking about the band going to Washington and the inauguration, and we had just started talking about the upcoming special session the governor is planning for February, possibility of a processing tax. There's another tax that he's talking about as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a gasoline tax, 20 to 30 cents. We've got about a $13 billion backlog of infrastructure projects that we're short on. I think the president-elect has talked about we really have done a poor job of putting money into our infrastructure around this country. But I think maybe 20 to 30 cents is a little bit much. Well, last time we went down this road, Mike, if you'll remember, it was a 4-cent tax for the time project.
And as I recall, Mike, that a lot of the quote dedicated highway tax doesn't go to highways.
It did not. It went to state police and a lot of other places. We've now reined that back in, and most, I would say, 90% of the dollars are going into highway. But it's still retirement and other places that those dollars are going into, not exactly concrete and asphalt.
Well,
it's not where
it's interesting. One of these bills is a bill that would impose a $1.5 billion hydrocarbon processing tax on the 17 refineries, and that's to assist the transportation. But this is what we were talking about, is that what happens when you impose that tax on refineries? And both of you can answer that question. One, because you're in the oil business.
Probably Mike can do it better than I am, but I would think, first of all, that even if we impose that, it would go into litigation very quickly. And then, second of all, while it's in litigation, our processors and refineries in say Louisiana are going to be looking at other places.
Well, and let's talk about the practical aspect. Here's what happens, and especially in a community like Shreveport or Lake Charles, where you are bordering a state of Texas that doesn't have as high a state gasoline tax or a processing tax. Instead of buying my gas in Shreveport, I'll just go to Wascom. I mean, there's some practical aspects that people don't think, and
yeah, because when it's laid out to the average citizen, and you know this, Mike, the way things are deceptively laid out, it's that there's this pile of money and it's not going anywhere. We're just taking pieces of it off. But the truth is, when you add the tax to that pile of $100 bills, then it reduces that pile because they stop doing business here. We're not guaranteed. This is not a socialist communist country yet where you have to mandatorily do business in that place, and it's a mandatory thing that you pay that tax. So the listeners need to realize what we're talking about, that there may be these refineries now in Louisiana, but if you start to do this and impede the ability to do business, just like in the United States, they'll go other places. In the United States, they go to China. Here, they'll just go across the street to Texas and further impact our weak state economy.
And we have a refinery here, Calumet, in Shreveport. Of course, Exxon in Baton Rouge, huge refinery. But Texaco has one in Longview. So if I was a gasoline purchaser here in Shreveport, and all of a sudden there's a processing tax on Calumet or Exxon, guess what? I'm gonna start buying my gasoline from Longview.
Well, it's
exactly.
So Mike Walsworth, you know what people are going to say, but we have this deficit. So we're not just the party of no, we're the solution party. What kind of solutions do we have alternative to these taxes and fees?
Well, first of all, you got to here's what and I'll do this real quick. We don't believe in zero-based budgeting in the state of Louisiana. What we do is what you got last year plus what you want for this year, we're going to debate that extra that you're asking for this year. What we need to do is go back to zero-based budgeting, say this is what we need to do and this is what we want to do. There's a lot of difference. We do that at home. We do that at business every single day, and you prioritize your spending. And we don't do that. And so what we wind up having is we've got some excellent new programs. What we've got is a bunch of old programs that are not needed anymore. We've got to bring our state budget into the 21st century. If there's things that you can do online and by credit card and those kind of things, I think we could lower the number of state employees we have with some innovative ideas that we should be looking at instead of, well, we've done it that way for 40 years. I don't know why we got to change now. And so I think we've got to do a better job with how we spend our taxpayers' dollars. And once we do that, then we can start looking at new dollars.
And of course, we
spend them
we kick around the idea over and over again because of constitutional dedication. Healthcare and higher ed is what's always cut, and I know you serve a district with the University of Louisiana Monroe. We have
Tech, Grambling. I got 3 universities in my area.
And everybody's budget is being cut constantly, and of course we've got the TOPS issue that we're going to talk about again in the upcoming legislative session. I mean, where are we going with higher ed?
Well, and we've got, I think, where the previous government was trying to go, and I sort of agreed with you, we need to be, every university should be an area of excellence. If you're not the number one in your area, I've got 3 in my area. I'll just go ahead and say, I got 3 in my area. I don't need 3 nursing programs. I don't need 3 construction programs. Let's just do one. Let's do it well, and let's be the best in the state. I've got a great pharmacy school at ULM. That's great. We don't have another one in the state, and that's the way we probably ought to do some of the stuff that we do. So let's find out what we do best instead of trying to do everything for everybody.
And then give
and
people
let's see what we can do
incentive
better.
to go to those schools based on their programs, like Grambling having specific things. That makes sense. And then ULM having the things that you get there. Tech is known for its engineering, and they've been getting all kinds of awards. They were just nominated or said their best value in the state.
But the big problem we run into, Michelle, is who makes that decision as to who gets to do what. Senator Mike Walsworth, District 33, State of Louisiana.
Take care, Mike.
Have a good time in
talking to
Washington,
you.
D.C. Appreciate you being on the show. This is Mike Wood sitting in for the C.L. Bryant Show. We'll be back after the break.
Got some good old loving and I got some more in store. When I get through throwing it on you, you got to come back for more. Boys and things that come by the dozen, that ain't nothing but drugs, no love. Hey, little thing, let me light your candle, cause the mama, I'm sure all the hand and I just around.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods in the studio with Michelle, who's packing her bags to go to Washington.
Well, that's right. The inauguration is coming. We're talking to everybody from around the country that's going. We have a special guest on our show. I think this is her first time, but the first of many.
Lenore Whitney, who is the National Committee Woman for the state of Louisiana. Lenore, welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
How are things in Houma, Louisiana today?
Oh, hot. That's it. I mean, I can't believe we're almost 80 degrees here. So, but everything's well.
Well, good. Well, you've got an upcoming meeting as the National Committee Woman from Louisiana to elect a new chair. How's that going to work out?
Well, this is Ronna Romney McDaniel. She is the chairwoman of Michigan, and Reince Priebus gets to pick the next person in line to be the chair, and he picked Ronna as his to precede him. So she's been the chairman of Michigan now since 2015, and she just did a tremendous job.
Delivered Michigan for the president, and for those of y'all who didn't catch it, she is the daughter of Mitt Romney.
No, she's the niece.
Niece, okay.
Niece. He only has sons, Mike.
I got you.
What kind of good Republican are you,
well,
buddy?
That's,
Yeah, there we go. No, actually, Mike's been a lifelong Republican. He's been to presidential inaugurations. I cannot believe that he just made that faux pas, but that's okay.
Oh, well.
But this is interesting about her, though. You know, some people just pick people because of their race or their gender to be trendy, but she really did the work. This isn't because she's a female or related to Mitt Romney. This is because she did the work of energizing and mobilizing Republicans in Michigan. And I'm sure you're proud.
Absolutely. Yeah, Michigan, this is the first time Michigan has turned red since 1988. So, I mean, she's been working in the party, like I said, since 2015. So, I mean, she's just been constantly trying to build the Republican, image and bringing people to the party. So, and, Donald Trump is a loyalist. And, when people do a good job, he wants to reward them for the job that he did. She brought in Michigan. And then the new co-chair that's going to be elected is going to be Bob Paducik, and he brought in Ohio. So
and nobody would have seen. Nobody saw that coming because Kasich, was vehemently opposed, and he's the governor. I was surprised by Michigan, but Ohio.
Yeah. Now you see, and Bob Paducik ran. Senator Rob Portman's campaign. And Rob Portman, really came
against Trump, yes.
The effort. Yeah, well, he really came to the effort of Donald Trump because we had no governor. Kasich was working against us, basically just kind of dropped the ball and offered absolutely no help. And that was a problem, with the nominees as they were, as Donald Trump was beating them and they were out of the race. Then they all just kind of deserted the party and decided they just didn't want to play with the Republicans anymore. So it was pretty sad to see the way some of them, behaved, for after Donald Trump was the nominee.
What do you think about Reince and what he did during this volatile? Since January of last year, it's been a crazy ride. How do you think he handled that?
Well, let me tell you, Reince is a tremendous man. He has been the chairman of the Republican Party for the last 6 years, which is one of the longest running chairman of the RNC. And this man does not cease. He is constantly on the go. He is constantly raising money for the RNC. He is constantly reaching out for people for information. The RNC has really put together one of the best ground roots effort, and after we saw what Barack Obama's campaign did in 2008, the RNC decided, man, we got to get on the ball and not stop. So they had just tremendous efforts that just kept rolling year after year after year.
Well, and he was able to unite us under Trump. Mike Woods was not an original Trump supporter. We say this all the time on the show.
None of us on the show were originally Trump
We were
folks.
somebody else, but yet we all coalesced. And Reince was able to do things with integrity. Even if he didn't agree with Donald Trump, those commitments were made, and he stayed true to that. And now he's chief of staff, and I'm sure you're looking for good things. He seems to be a great manager, for sure.
Yes, he is, and a negotiator. You see, so and that's what he basically does and brings to the party. I think he's going to be a tremendous asset to the RNC, and I think he's going to be tremendous as a chief of staff because, his work ethics will be right alongside with Donald Trump. So I thought it was a very good, a good pick. I personally liked it because I worked with Reince for the past 6 years. So I have a great personal relationship with him and his wife and his 2 children. So for me personally to say that I know the chief of staff, in a personal manner is like, well, this just is
that's
exciting
good
for me too.
For us here.
Yeah,
so let's talk about you
exactly.
for just a moment. As a female Republican, now you were a former state representative in your area in Houma, but let's talk about women and the GOP. You must have seen how the Democrats and the Hillary campaign just slammed that Trump was a woman hater and women weren't going to support him. What do you think about that as a woman who actually is a representative of the Republican Party on a national and statewide level?
Well, I dealt with that even as a legislator. The left has these wedge issues, and, women's rights and equal pay is something that they always, that they always try to suppress the women, as they do with other minorities and, basically the liberals do. So a lot of what they said, I knew that was going to be, just a lot of rhetoric, just a lot of talk, just to keep pushing that wedge even further and further with women, making them feel as though they don't have the same opportunities. Well, and I know that women really do have the same opportunities. You have to really dig in there and do it. No woman is really left behind on any job opportunity. So I think that's
and I think that all the
typical play.
The divisiveness about women, what intolerance is when you say all women think like this. Meryl Streep said basically all women and all actors don't like football. Well, I know a lot of women who were watching football yesterday, lots of glamorous, very pretty women around the country. And I just think that women said, you cannot define us. We're not going to vote for Hillary just because of her gender. She was incompetent in her jobs. We don't get to be incompetent at work and just say, well, I'm a woman. You have to promote me.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I think that I think the women came through. I think that the educated women, received the message. They knew.
We're coming up on a break, Lennar. We appreciate you being on the show. Appreciate your service to our state and our country. Have a great Mike Wood sitting in on the CX after the break. Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the with Michelle, and we have survived days of rain. I don't know if it's going to ever quit, but Michelle, it's been interesting over the past week as we wind down the Obama presidency, as he is now trying to I guess frame his legacy, and I don't know if you watched the Talking Heads over the weekend, but all of a sudden now a lot of Obama's problems really weren't Obama's problems. We're going back and blaming President Bush again. Nancy Pelosi and others said that the reason that the deficit has doubled under the 8 years of President Obama was not because of him, but because of the failed policies of Bush 43.
Well, it's interesting because he gave that speech in Chicago the other day. That alone should speak volumes. Chicago has the highest murder rate in the nation.
Murder capital of the world.
Of the world. Okay. It doesn't have the largest population. New York doesn't have the murder rate of Chicago.
Yeah.
So he does this speech, but he does nothing to address the black on black crime in Chicago. We have a lot of friends of the C.L. Bryant Show that are on the ground in Chicago, African American friends who are constantly complaining about those policies. It has the strictest gun control laws. So how can this man stand there and pretend? And honestly, it's just pretending. Let's talk about the facts. They also try to say there's no scandals in his administration. Well, if Benghazi is not a scandal, no, he didn't have morality, if you're talking about morals in his family, as a scandal. But being president is so much more than that. Benghazi was a scandal on his watch with a cover-up.
Well, and when you look at what he has done for the Democratic Party, losing 63 House seats during his tenure, 10 Senate seats, 12 governorships, he was always preaching to us basically a high-minded superiority, for lack of a better term. But it sure didn't translate to the Democratic Party, and now they're struggling. Not only do they have leadership, we talked last week about Senator Cory Booker attacking Senator Sessions, and then I saw over the weekend all of a sudden now the libs have turned on Senator Booker again because he voted against a Senator Sanders' proposal to regulate drug prices. And of course, he's from the great state of New Jersey, which has a lot of pharmaceutical companies, and so one day he's preaching that he's the man of the people, and then 2 days later he's voting against the people by not allowing restriction on drug
but he
prices.
did the right thing about in the pharmaceutical world. There's a lot of Democrats that didn't vote the way they wanted because this capitalism is part of what makes America great. It is. Nobody can honestly say that you're a socialist but you love America, because they work against each other. Freedom and independence come with great responsibility. Woo. And CL says it all the time. You know, that's the price of freedom, is eternal vigilance. We have to be paying attention. Let's talk about his legacy some more, though. Obamacare, which initially he wanted to call it Affordable Care Act.
They got away from that quickly because it's not affordable.
And they wouldn't let you say it. I can say that in being circles in the healthcare industry in D.C., you were not allowed to. If you used the word Obamacare, then they knew you were some right-wing nut job. But then his people said, no, dude, you want it to be your name because it's your legacy. And now he's trying to pretend that it's working when it's not. And, you know, we need to spend more time on our show explaining to our listeners. Now, obviously, most of them are much smarter than I am, but the simplicity of what makes it not work. Just because they created this program, if it's so expensive you can't use it, and you can't afford it, it's not insurance.
And if you're penalized because you're not willing to pay the high premium, and yet you get fined $2,500 for not paying the high premium, and yet those that are paying the high premium have such a high deductible they don't get to use it. So I mean, it's a
no other company in America. Every company wishes they could tax the American people and say, you have to use my business. But that's what Obamacare was saying, and that's why they thought it wouldn't pass at the Supreme Court level, because basically, if Obamacare is a business, they demanded that everyone participate. That's how socialism works. They take over the pie as the government, and then they start to tell us how to use our money. We left that in Europe over 200 years ago. People are still living that way, but you're noticing around the world now, people are wanting to be a capitalist.
Well, you address the taxation without representation, and that's exactly what happened with Obamacare. And the bill was passed with, as Nancy Pelosi told us, don't worry about it, we'll read it later and tell you what's in it. And more companies who have initially signed on to the Affordable Care Act have now left, and we continue to have the bleeding. And you know, it's only common sense. And I understand the plight of people who had pre-existing conditions. But the bottom line is somebody has to pay for all that. And what has happened, the thought process of healthy young millennials signing up and supporting those that had pre-existing conditions didn't happen. And so the companies that were trying to continue doing business were stuck with these folks that had high health care costs. They didn't have the premiums from people who didn't use the insurance, and they've lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And so as we go forth, you know, and of course the left is saying, well, Trump doesn't have a plan.
Well, Trump didn't have to have a plan. The senators and congressmen had a plan. Bill Cassidy has introduced a health care plan last week in the Senate, but you don't hear the non-journalistic media talking about that. And our congressman in Louisiana helped, and Bill Cassidy was one of them in 2012, because we had a guy running for president named Mitt Romney. He thought he was going to win, and he's smart enough to say, hey, present me stuff because I want to implement this. We thought we were going to win in 2012, so we could have started this in 13. But I think you hit something important about healthcare. A lot of people, like myself, want to know why the government is even involved. That's a question that we can't debate right now, but also the cost of doing health care and how that works, because people have to make a profit in a capitalistic society. So if it's a bunch of sick people paying in and they basically put $100 in the pot, but then they're taking 120 out, then you run in a deficit. They were hoping that healthy people that were only going to use $10 were going to give that $80 to cover the cost of the unhealthy people. And you're saying that didn't work. But how is government going to fix this and equalize it?
Well, the bottom line is they're not. They need to get out of the healthcare business. But there have been those that have been pushing for a single payer government system from day one. I mean, Hillary tried it in '92 and '93. And we will continue to have those that are screaming that we can't kick these poor people off. But let's be honest. Everyone in the U.S. has free health care. No one can be turned down when they go to emergency room. So
well, I know, but we really do have to really be honest when it comes to people who don't have health care. It's really something to talk about. They're not just a number. These are real people, and some of our listeners could be them. I understand that Medicaid on women only kicks in when they're pregnant.
Well, and we've got Representative Price that's going to be heading up. And, of course, he's had a lot of good ideas and suggestions through the years over how to address the Obamacare cost issue. So we shall see. Stay tuned, folks. This is Mike Wood sitting in for C.L. Bryant. We will be back after the break.
Every day I get in the queue to get on the bus that takes me to you. I'm so nervous I just sit and smile.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have had a an interesting couple of days of rain, and we've had some interesting conversations with Senator Mike Walsworth about the future of higher ed.
And some lively debate over Obamacare, which we will continue. But right now we have one of our very special close friends.
Yeah, it is Dr. Johnette Magner, who is the Executive Director of the Shreveport-Bossier Business Alliance. Johnette, glad to have you on the C.L. Bryant Show.
Well, thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be with you.
I think the first question that comes to everyone's mind, Johnette, is what is the Shreveport-Bossier Business Alliance?
That is correct. And actually, it's the Shreveport-Bossier Business Alliance for Higher Education. We are called the SBBA, and we've been around for 4 years, and we are made up of businesses or individuals who are very concerned about higher education in this community and its ability to meet workforce needs as neglected, quite frankly, as higher education has been in recent years. So we were formed to make sure that our institutions are strong, that they get what they need, that they have a voice in the business community and can turn out the workforce that our employers need if they're going to stay here and thrive.
And I'm gonna brag on the SBBA and Johnette and have a confession that I've been a part of it from the inception. But they have done some incredible things, spending time in Baton Rouge during the legislative session, pushing key bills. The reason we have a doctoral program in nursing and in education here, both at Northwestern and LSU Shreveport, is because of efforts on behalf of the Shreveport-Bossier Business Alliance, and we've done some great things, and I'm proud to be part of it.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you because you're incredible citizens, but you're giving back to the community and raising the level. Johnette, one of the things you always tell us is that education is an investment. It's not an expense, but it's an investment, and I think that's the powerful message that our listeners, our legislators, even in other states. I mean, this may be in Louisiana, but anybody can copy this. I think both of you got involved in this because it was needed. And I think that's the part that I appreciate, that you saw a need and then you did something about it.
Well, and thank you, Mike and Michelle. And you're very right. It is an investment because when we do invest in our young people and help them navigate college and get through college, they then become taxpayers, and they pay back into the system. There was a report that came out just this week that showed we have the greatest disparity in income between those with only a high school degree and those with a college degree that we've ever had in the history of this country. So right now, it's about 53%, I believe. That's how much more you're going to make if you have a college degree versus just having a high school degree.
Well, the last statistics I saw were it's $1.1 million differential between a high school degree and a college degree over a lifetime.
Well, and it's going up.
Yeah.
It's going up, and that's certainly over somebody's lifetime. And I'll tell you right now, the employers that are coming here, like CSRA, they're needing people with certain skills. And, in fact, they're sitting down with 3 of our universities next week, and they're going to sit and look at the degree programs and say, be sure to teach this, be sure to emphasize this. And those are the places where they're going to, quite frankly, be looking to hire, and those are going to be good paying jobs.
Well,
So
let's talk about CSRA. Because that is a perfect example. Now, we've tried to get them on the show. Mike, really wants to talk to them, and we've had scheduling conflicts. But let's talk about that. That is a business that's local here in Shreveport. It's actually in Bossier, but these cities are close to connected. And the kind of work they do is very special, and it's high-skilled. And Louisiana Tech has an incredible engineering program, but they basically write and develop software, to make it very simple, for the government and intelligence and, the things that we hear about, the cyber attacks or, from Russia and all of this, and we're not protected. This entity here may be the very solution. The solution for those attacks on the cyberspace may come out of something here in our area, but they've hired, they're adding jobs right now. But it's what you said, Johnette. These are not just your, hourly wage, minimum wage jobs. This is a highly trained, not just college degree, but also specializing.
Yes, and when they came here, they did so after having sat with 3 of our colleges in the region, and after getting a commitment from those colleges that they will work and make sure that they teach the students the exact things that CSRA needs for them to know and understand and be ready to do when they walk in the door. And it's that kind of alignment that you're seeing more and more of, and that is critically important to giving employers the confidence to move into a market where you don't have people just sitting around with those skills and available to go to work. That's how. So we've got to grow
And that's
them, and
partnering.
we've got to develop them.
Well, it's
Yeah.
partnering higher education. We want to keep all these universities open. We just talked to Mike Walsworth. He has 3 universities in his state senate district. I mean, we have so many right here on this I-20 corridor, so we have to have a reason. And I think this is brilliant. I do, and I'm really impressed, and I appreciate it.
Well, and we've been fortunate. Bossier Parish Community College jumped in as a result of the Cyber Command Center's need of a certain classification, and as you know, Johnette, computers are not my thing, but there is some classification that people who work in the computer world need to have some sort of security training or background, and Bossier Parish quickly developed through their dean of technology out there a program, and they have trained hundreds of these employees so far, and so all of a sudden throughout the United States, these companies that need this classification for their employee are coming online at Bossier Parish Community College, and so that's a great example of how higher ed can meet the needs of the workforce. We're coming up on a break, and when we come back, we've got Dr. Johnette Bagner, Executive Director, Shreveport Bossier Business Alliance. We're going to talk about state funding for higher ed and the proposed cut or change in the TOPS program. This is Mike Woods sitting in the C.L. Bryant studio. We'll be back after the break.
Well, you've heard about love and giving sight to the blind. My baby loving cause the sun to shine. And she's my sweet little thing. She's my pride and joy.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in for C.L. Bryant, who is in North Carolina. I'm in the studio with Michelle, and we have Dr. Jeanette Magner, Executive Director, Shreveport-Bossier Business Alliance, on the phone with us. Jeanette, we met Friday, a group from the Shreveport-Bossier Business Alliance for Higher Education, to discuss and come up with a response to Act 619 of the 2016 regular session, a Board of Regents study that came out. And one of the things that that really I think a lot of our listening audience may not be aware of, in 2008-2009 fiscal year, state funds contributed basically 61.4% of the total budget, and 37.5% was self-generated. Today, 2016-17, 28% comes from the state, and 70.9% comes from self-generated. And of that 28.5% that comes, almost 2/3 goes back to pay for unfunded mandates. So we talk about the importance of higher education, but we don't fund it. What's going on?
Well, and those statistics you just shared are really interesting when you break them down, because you gave a statewide average. There are some schools, including McNeese, where they actually give more money back to the state than they get from it.
So they would be better off
upside down. So if they, I can imagine that they would love to sit down with the state and say, "You keep yours, I'll keep mine. Let's agree to part."
Yeah.
So, because yes, the state transactions are negative for them. Right
so
now.
McNeese gives back more money to the state than they receive from the state.
Correct.
Wow. Well, what are some of the interesting tidbits that have come out of this response to Act 619 from the Board of Regents?
Well, I think the thing that your listeners are going to be most interested in is the TOPS issue. As everyone getting TOPS this year is well aware, we did not sufficiently fund it as we have always in the past. So those students who are going back to school this week across the state are only going to have 40% of what paid of what TOPS was, and I say supposed to pay, of what TOPS paid a year ago. This year it's only 40%. So they're having to come up with the other 60. And for many students, that's a big surprise and not one that they were financially prepared for. I have read and understand that we really haven't seen many shifts right now in terms of where people are going, because most students commit to housing for a year and other things like that. So they're just making do pretty much this spring. What we're likely to see is people sitting down over the summer and looking at other options. What the Board of Regents is proposing is not full funding of TOPS this coming year, which we don't expect that we'll be able to do this year either. Everyone says they'd love to do it, but no one expects it to happen. So what they're saying is, all right, let's tier it up by what year you're in. So a freshman gets 80% of TOPS money, of their TOPS award. A sophomore gets 90% of the TOPS award, and then juniors and seniors get 100% of the TOPS award.
That's a brilliant idea. That's the first time I've heard this. Because, Janet, you've pointed out on this program before that students will take TOPS at 100%, and then they never graduate and get past that sophomore year or freshman year, and it's a waste of revenue. You know, analyzing something like analyzing TOPS and seeing where it's working and not working does not mean you're cutting it. You know, the argument becomes so divisive. It's either cut TOPS or fund it all the way. How about some common sense and being good stewards over the money? So you're still giving them a huge incentive as a freshman for 80%, and then you're giving them an incentive to stay in school. So I'm sure you have statistics that show you that a junior is more likely to graduate much greater than a sophomore. You know, you can't really tell, but you can tell in a junior year that they're most likely to graduate. Is that the kind of numbers you're looking at?
Oh, absolutely. The greatest dropout year is between freshman and sophomore, and those are the years you're most likely to lose TOPS as well. The other big TOPS change, Michelle, very important, is right now you only have to complete 24 hours over the course of the year to keep tops, they're going to, and I think they're very serious about this piece, and I'm not hearing much pushback on it. They're now looking at raising it to 30 hours. The reality is that if you don't complete 30 hours a year, you don't finish in 4. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to take 15 a semester. Back when I was in school, it was not uncommon for me to have a year where I took 12 each semester, and then I took 6 at the community college over the summer at home, where the hours were a lot less expensive, and I took history and those types of things.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize, but the way Louisiana structures their tuition, after 12 hours, your tuition doesn't go up if you take 15 hours or 18 hours. I graduated in 3 years, John Ed. I took 128 hours in 3 years, and even took a summer off. So, I mean, we're not talking about some, impossible burden. If you can't take 15 hours a semester, and let's be honest, most degrees are 128, even 15 a semester won't get you out in 4 years.
Yes, that's correct.
Let me clear this up.
You should be able, unless of course you're working a whole lot of hours. And again, I like to think about students whose parents don't just write the check and cover everything, but many of them do have a job, and if they have, they work 30 hours a week or something like that, then the 6 hours over the summer could be a nice option too. But the reality is that, yes, that's a very reasonable request.
As we go, and of course, a lot of folks don't understand part of the politics in this, and the reason that LSU A&M in Baton Rouge enrollment has held up is that a student gets more TOPS money to go to Baton Rouge than he does to go to Tech or to LSU Shreveport, and so there's going to be some interesting as we go through and talk about mergers and whatever.
Well, let me ask you this, Jeanette. I know you have somewhere to go. Do you have another few minutes with us to talk about TOPS?
Oh, yes.
Good, because we want to get more into the nitty-gritty of that, because we're looking for this legislation to pass, not just talk about it, but let's help you make it happen.
All right, we have Dr. Johnette Magner, who will stay with us through the break, and this is Mike Woods sitting in the C.L. Bryant studio. We will be back in a minute.
Chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there. But can you still recall the time we cried? Break on through to the other side. Break on
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio for C.L. Bryant with Michelle, and we have Dr. Johnette Magner, Executive Director, Shreveport-Bossier Business Alliance for Higher Education, on the phone. And Johnette, as we went into the break, we were talking about this TOPS proposal, and as we get into that, there's, I believe, another suggestion that the Board of Regents came up with, just a flat $4,000 fee across the board. How do you think that's going to fly?
That's I find that very interesting too. And so basically what that would do as you think through it is that would tell the student, if you want to pay on top of that to go to an LSU in Baton Rouge, you're welcome to do so. But if you don't have your own money or don't care to contribute your own money and you want that to cover everything, then you can go to an LSUS or a BIPSI and it covers the entire amount. Obviously, those schools who are currently benefiting from the tiered model, which is what we have now, where tuition is tied to what their tuition is, are not going to like that option very much.
The LSUs of the world.
Well, but I think there's a lot more. It's a little more complicated than that, because you don't want to do something that's going to say only the elite students can afford to go to LSU in Baton Rouge, because then that takes the equality off of the table, which is supposedly what this is all about, especially in Louisiana, because we have such a large minority community. We're trying to empower them to go to school and to equally go to LSU in Baton Rouge. And that's what was wonderful about TOPS, is it allowed those students to afford that and not have to go to a lower, in their mind, tier school. But I do understand that you're saying that a school's not going to consider their cost of their tuition if TOPS says, yes, we'll just adjust our rate so the student gets paid more to go to your school, and then you as LSU then has no incentive of keeping their costs low. But going back to the tiered model, did you find cost savings there? Did you see that if you all went to 80% for freshmen and 90% for sophomores, did you see a cost savings? Because if our listeners they want to know, how is TOPS going to be covered? And we want it to be incentivized, because that's the other reason to have it, not just like a welfare check where you just get it for waking up in the morning, but to participate and to work. College is to teach young people that the rest of your life you can be successful, but you're going to have to work hard. So the incentivized program, do you have numbers on that show that we'll save money and we can fund TOPS?
I do not have numbers right now on what the savings would be under that plan, but I can tell you this, that LSU by far gets the most top students, and then after that you have University of Louisiana, Lafayette, Southeastern, and Louisiana Tech, and then you have other schools down to a community college level. Community colleges get very few TOPS dollars. So it would be most impactful on an LSU where, quite frankly, where tuition is most expensive. So that, we would see quite a bit of savings there under that. I do know, too, that LSU is not supportive of this plan and this recommendation.
Even the tiered 80%, and they're not. Why not? I'm just curious.
I don't have details. I've just been told they will not be supporting it.
Well, I understand that the regents have put this plan out in response to this act, and the comment period closes when? In February?
February the 6th. That's right. And so Mike is part of an ad hoc committee that we have put together to reach out, first of all, to the 9 colleges in our region and ask how these changes would impact them, positively and negatively, and if so negatively, is there any kind of tweak or change that could make it better? We're going to take that feedback as well as look through it ourselves and submit a formal response that takes into account the needs of our region. So we're going to be spending quite a bit of time on this project, which has to wrap up by February the 6th. And the Board of Regents are aware that they will be hearing our thoughts on how we'd like to see it change.
And now, have you heard some feedback yet about who it negatively would affect the most, off the top of your head?
I have not gotten any of the feedback I've requested yet. As you can imagine, this is the kind of thing that takes a while to go through, and for administrators to sit down and really talk it through and take a formal position. And they'll all have to be doing that for their systems as well, which will comment on their behalf too. but you're going to see, I mean, our colleges up here are all so different. And, I mean, down to the bottom line, and you say, well, what about the medical school? Medical school doesn't give a flip about TOPS. No TOPS dollars go to the medical school. I mean, so that everybody has a different composition of students and is impacted differently by all of these changes. And so what's really important is for us to understand specifically what those changes will
well
do.
And when we get into the politics of it all, I mean, we had Mike Walsworth who represents Grambling, ULM, and Louisiana Tech as a Louisiana state senator. That's when this gets real interesting, and it's easy to say, well, we don't need nursing programs everywhere, but don't touch the nursing programs in my 3 schools.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about Louisiana Tech before we have to let you go, because they have been getting award after award. They just got the award as the #1 best value in Louisiana in higher education. We tried to get Dr. Geis on, but we weren't able to. But tell us what you think about that.
Well, I actually, Dr. Geis and I are friends and on LinkedIn together, and I noticed that Southern Living actually, if you want to reach people in the South, especially moms, put something in Southern Living. But yes, they were recently named that, and they're named that so often. I mean, their return on investment, the money that you get paid starting right out of Louisiana Tech on average, and then over the course of your life, is so good compared to what Louisiana Tech costs. So yes, Louisiana Tech gets recognized, I would say, at least once a month by somebody for the return on investment.
Well, it's going to be interesting as we go into the legislative session to see what new taxes are proposed and what budget cuts are proposed, and everything that goes on as far as higher ed is concerned. Dr. Johnette Magner, we appreciate you being on the show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the C.L. Bryant studio. We'll be back after the break.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio with Michelle, and C.L. is in South Carolina.
He's in North Carolina and
North
South Carolina.
Yes.
He's in both. It's a Freedom Works tour. He's been on it all week. Martin Luther King Day, he was there, and it's empowerment for youth. It's Empower as something that he does for Freedom Works, where they actually teach and go into universities and high schools. And he's going to be doing it in Louisiana as well. And just across the nation, he goes and he does that. And it's very interesting because you know, as a higher ed person, how important it is for them to understand American principles, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And he's an authentic black man whose grandfather was a slave. He can talk about these things, or I guess his great-grandfather.
And I've said it before, if you ever have the chance to see CL in person, you really need to make the effort, because as good as he is on the radio, he is incredible in person. I mean, he thrives off of an audience, so I would encourage you to...
Kind of like you. No, not you. But and also his movie, Runaway Slave. Everybody needs to see that movie. You can watch it. Go to our website, and there's links that you can go to purchase it, watch it. It's just important. It's a documentary that he made in 2012 and released in 2012 that today is much more informative, and people need to see. It's like a guideline to understand what's happening. Back to Obama's legacy again, which is what you wanted to talk about. Look at the condition of the workforce and the economy and the poor, and particularly the black unemployment rates around the nation.
It's higher after his 8 years than it was at the beginning of his term.
And yet he thinks that that's okay. I just don't understand.
You know, another thing, Michelle, as we go around the great state of Louisiana, everybody's always want to know what's going to happen with gas prices. And you know, as we enter the new year, OPEC has agreed to cut production back over 1 million barrels a day. Interestingly enough, I was reading yesterday that already U.S. production, just because of the fact that the price of crude oil has gone over $50, we have ramped up over 500,000 barrels. We've gone from 8.5 million barrels a day of production to almost 9 million. And so the pundits are now saying that perhaps the OPEC cuts aren't going to be enough because U.S. production is ramping up. And yet gasoline still here, I filled up over the weekend. It's still below $2.
Well, why is that? I mean, you're the guy. We can't let you leave here until you give us that update.
Well, the reason that gasoline stays low in Louisiana is twofold. Number one, because the refineries are here, and we talked earlier in the show with Senator Walsworth about a processing tax and what that would do as far as gas prices are concerned. But it also, you know, Louisiana has a low gasoline tax. You know, there's a federal gasoline tax and a state gasoline tax. And so we, along with other southern states where the majority of the refineries are located, have low state gasoline taxes. So that's why. But
to incentivize keeping the refinery here.
Correct.
Now, the thing about everything in America is there's always a diverse opinion. So we have 17 refineries in Louisiana, and there's environmentalists that hate refinery. But people need to realize they don't want us driving cars either. Now, all environmentalists are not the same. There's varying degrees, because you and I are environmentalists on certain levels. But when it comes to saying that we're going to have to go back to living in the 1800s, you know, we wouldn't do that unless we had to, which I don't think we're going to have to.
Well, and I don't know if you saw the article in the newspaper Sunday about the methane from cows. But there was a young lady, a graduate of Magnet High, and her degree that she's working on is environmental science, and she is proposing that we quit eating red meat because cows produce so much methane and it's destroying the environment.
Now, where was this?
This was in the Shreveport Times over the weekend. It was in the Sunday newspaper.
And she's doing this at Magnet right now, or
no,
she's in college?
She is a college student. I forget. She's up at maybe University of Nebraska. I can't remember. But she is a freshman studying environmental science. And people don't realize that cows and decaying material produce almost 80% of the methane in the atmosphere. And so her solution is that we all need to quit eating red meat.
Which, you know, people think that that's kind of funny, but it's not funny. Either side, it's not funny, because we need to look at true effects. Because if it was really true that people were dying of cancer because we were eating so much beef. So we have to look at what the net effect is.
But she doesn't care that we're eating beef. She cares that the cows are producing flatulent gases that are methane.
But so many.
And California is going to tax the
idea.
cows, and so what's going to happen? The dairy farmers are going to leave California. If we came up with a flatulence tax here in the U.S., what's going to happen? Our ranchers will just move to South America.
But we need to talk about why they want to do that. See, they have discovered some truth to that. And what happens is we're so polarized, and I think the whole message of 2017 is building bridges around these conversations. She thinks she found out something, but it's inside of a bucket. She's got to see it how it fits into the real world picture.
Well, when I read the newspaper article Sunday morning, the first thing I did was go to the store and buy some ribeye steaks and cook them Sunday night. Yeah,
beef and all of that.
So
No, and I feel we need to constantly this year talk about the regulations in California because it affects all of the planet. Because there's such rich soil in California, they need to be farming.
And they're all underwater right now. This is Mike Woods. We're sitting in the C.L. Bryant studio with Michelle, and we will be back after the break.
I woke up this morning with the sun down, shining in. I found my mind in a brown paper bag, but then I tripped on a cloud and fell 8 miles high. I tore my mind on a jagged sky. I just dropped in to see what condition my condition was in.
Yeah, Brenda, speak into there, see if it works.
Testing.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have in the studio with us the Executive Director of Women of Diversity, Brenda Hill. Brenda, we are glad to have you in the studio.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
You know, one of the things that I enjoy about hosting the show from time to time is to showcase some of the great nonprofits we have here in the Shreveport-Bossier community, and looking at your website. You have been in existence since 2008, I believe.
That is correct.
Tell me about Women of Diversity. How did this come about? Who is Brenda Hill?
Okay. It started out as just a support group for women coming out of prison because me, myself, had been incarcerated before. So I wanted to have a group where women can come and be vulnerable, be transparent about their experiences in jail. And just from that group, it grew not just into people needing support, but people also needed help, like the tangible help of a place to be housed or a place to just talk about what they had gone through, what they learned while they were in prison, but they didn't know how to put those things into practice because we just had no avenue, no vehicle for people that were incarcerated on the outside.
You are obviously a faith-based organization.
We are faith-based, yes, we are.
But not sponsored by any one particular church.
Not sponsored, no.
You are your own 501c3.
That is correct.
And you're dealing primarily in assisting women who are victims of physical and sexual abuse.
Or is it just any women? It's women who are incarcerated?
Well, it's women who are incarcerated, but I've found also that women, typically they end up on probation and parole because of maybe abuse from like a domestic violence situation. So some come in that has not been incarcerated but find themselves in the system in some way, form, or fashion or another.
So pretty much you started off with one thing, but it developed into something much more.
The need is so great. I didn't realize we started out with one purpose and one vision, and just from that avenue, things has just grew. One woman would tell another woman about it, and they'll come in and they have this need, maybe not having been incarcerated, but also have a need where we in the community need to help them get from one avenue to the next, so be the bridge to help them cross over.
Now, you have a location here in the Shreveport-Bossier area, so women are living there with their children right now.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
And you have more women than you have room for. You've taken over a hotel.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. We have.
So tell us about some of the numbers.
Right now, the hotel has the capability of housing 165 rooms. When we took over the hotel, it needed a lot of renovations. But right now, we have like 80 of those rooms already remodeled and about 60 of them already occupied with women, children. And now we have also taken some men that probation and parole has brought, or some other parts of the community has brought in because they needed some assistance. But we are currently housing them. And what we do is we offer a day-to-day structured base where we serve meals for those people. We do education. We help them with job barriers. We've partnered with Goodwill, and they get to go to the employment services there. We also have partnered with some counselor that comes in, and they do IOP training for them, which is intensive outpatient treatment. So we kind of help them spiritually as well as practically. We don't just kind of force the I won't say religion, but the spirituality down their throats, but we also help them with that. But we serve as not just the spirit, we work with the body and the mind as well.
And you need a lot of volunteers to do that, from people to come in as counselors, doctors.
Absolutely.
And you're how are you funded?
Currently, just out of our own pockets, my husband and myself, as well as another lady in the community, we got loans and we've done this. And then we also had a couple of people that donate, just practical people just coming in and wanting to be a part and partner with us.
These ladies that come, and men as well, do they show up? Are they referred by the DA's office? I mean, where do they?
We've had many referrals, and just by word of mouth, other people have told other individuals about the program. But we also have people that are referred by prisons. We've had some that come from Tallulah, some from St. Gabriel. We have Edgefield Recovery that has sent people, which is from the South. And the reason that most recovery centers send them is because they go into recovery for 6 to 7 months, and they need this aftercare program to say, hey, I've learned how to be a better individual, but I don't want to return home. So I need to return
some kind of in-between transition period.
Yes,
absolutely.
You know,
Brenda, you've hit onto something. Mike, CL, we do justice reform. That's just the tag name out there on the national level, local level. Justice reform, Mike, part of that component is what she's talking about. And it's not federally funded. This is all based on donations and volunteers.
Absolutely.
But it creates something where these people's lives are different and changed. So it's
Absolutely.
not just us saying, yeah, you're in jail, now get out and don't do that anymore. We show them how to be different people.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes people get into crime because of a lack of education.
Absolutely.
And not just education in school, but all kinds of environmental
In
education.
community.
And the communities, and this show is broadcast around the country. You can be in North Carolina, and you could be looking at developing this in your city and counties
Absolutely.
around the country, because we need to help our communities.
That's awesome.
Well, and one of the things that I've always liked about nonprofits is that they have the ability. You saw a need and you stepped up to the plate and you're addressing the need. You know, oftentimes there are those that say, "Well, government should take care of that." Well, as we are seeing in our prisons, I mean, we're supposed to be rehabilitating folks, but we're not doing a good job. So you have seen the need, and it's. I love entrepreneurs that come up with an idea and then self-fund it. That's pretty brave. Take out loans but obviously God
really
has
cares.
God has placed a burden on your heart, and you're doing something. We have in the studio Brenda Hill, the executive director of Women of Diversity, and as we go into the break, we will keep Brenda through the break, and we will be back in a minute. This is Mike Wood sitting in for the C.L. Bryant Show. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio with Michelle, and we have Brenda Hill, the Executive Director of Women of Diversity. Brenda, as we went into the break, we were talking about some of the programs you have and some of the needs, and I asked you a question from my nonprofit background about who all you were working with, and you already mentioned that you're working with a Goodwill, but you also said that you work with the Providence House, and you were talking about a story of how you just recently brought in two 17-year-old ladies.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it was on Thursday. I had a call from the Caddo Correctional Center where a young girl had been picked up for prostitution. She stayed in jail for 30 days, but she was in prostitution because of being aged out of the foster care system, and she had no family to go to. So her ideal of taking care of herself was to go to the streets and sell her body.
Okay. She lives in Caddo Parish.
She lives in Caddo Parish.
She had nowhere to go to because she didn't have a family. When we have more churches per capita than anywhere in the world, because it's more than anywhere in the United States, Shreveport, Louisiana. You might not know that statistic.
Wow.
Churches. Do you know what a church is, Brenda? It's the place that you go to when you need help. You just show up on the doorstep. And you're telling me that a girl in this city, 17 years old, because she didn't have a family, didn't know where to go. She didn't just show up at a church and think that she could get help. Instead, she turned to something like that.
Absolutely. And she spent 30 days in jail, and when she was released, she received credit for time served. She was released when we were called because she had nowhere to go and she didn't want to go back to the streets. We currently have two young ladies, one 17 and one just turned 18, that we're housing.
And what are you doing for these ladies?
Well, one of them has no GED, so one of them we're working with to get her GED, and the other one has a GED that she received because she moved from house to house, so she had no stable place where she went to high school. She received a high-set GED, but we're working with her to try to get her into BIPSI. Like I said, she just got there on last week, but right now she's in a mentoring program.
And it's a safe, wholesome environment where she's not going to be abused.
Absolutely.
You know, Bossier Parish Community College is very near and dear to Mike Woods' heart. In addition to the fact that they're trying to work with BIPSI to get her in there, BIPSI also has an at-risk GED program,
right,
just for people like that.
Right.
See, and this is how it all works together. You know, we're all about public policy on this show. And we want people to realize that we have to have solutions. We don't want the government doing it for us. So it's going to take all of us rising up together,
work together,
and helping out.
Absolutely.
So what, our listening audience, what can they do to help Brenda Hill and Women of Diversity?
Actually, we need volunteers. We need as many that would come in and help the women and help the men to be big brothers or big sisters, to just teach them how to live again. Some of them don't know how to live, and so they're learning in this environment. Yes, they've been in prison. Yes, they've learned the prison way, but now they're out of prison. They need to know how to live not behind bars, how to be able to make a bad choice but still make the good one. So they need people to mentor them and to show them how to do that.
Tell them your website where they can get more information. We're going to hold you over after this break to tell them about an upcoming fundraiser.
All right, we got to go to the break. We'll be back with Brenda Hill, Women of Diversity.
What? Okay, I don't think so. I think we took Johnette. We did Johnette at 6:15.
We're on 11.
We don't even have 3 minutes?
It's 3:50.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor then.
Okay.
Okay, this is what I need to do. So that was 7 minutes. So Johnette's last block was 7 minutes. Go to the block before, not this one, but the one before it was with her. Where's the block before that?
I can.
Yes.
That?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to push it like this. I want to take, not this, I want to take, we're going to redo this one, is what I'm saying. So that I just recorded a block with her. Not this one, but that first one we did. Or we can finish this one out. Can we just keep where we are and then, so let me put on paper so I can see.
Let me.
Well, we got 3 minutes. We can just wrap it up with her.
No, that's not that. No, Mike. Okay, so Johnette, we did a 7-minute block.
It's a lot better when you're live because you don't have to think about it. It just happens. The other night, Ruben was stuck in traffic. We're going on the air. It's 5. 25.
We're going to take
Ruben's
what
not
we've
here.
been doing.
And I told Michelle I could go outside and just holler in the parking lot, but other than that,
That's not
I mean, we were scrambling, and he just, I mean, he
Barely made it.
just barely made
Oh
it.
wow.
I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
even realize that we had done that with her. I miscalculated,
Well,
and you're right. I thought it was a 10-minute block. So we can just remove it. Like, it can be gone. So let's get rid of that and put that first block we did with her.
We had Bishop Larry Brandon in the other day. You know, he was opening his new center for boys.
For boys, yeah, I heard about it.
In honor of his son who was killed in Oakland.
Oh wow.
But I'm thinking through all there are a lot of folks to coordinate with. Our church just did Common Ground over there on Southern. Are you familiar with Common Ground?
No, and what church are you?
First Baptist Shreveport.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we have a strong prison ministry, but we're also tied into the Highland Center. John Henson is a good friend of mine who's the pastor there. And our church used to own that facility, and I think we may still, I'm not sure. Or no, we gave it to the Volunteers of America. But John Henson would be a good person for you to...
Wow. Volunteers of America sent us a guy, David. He's there currently. He was in a wheelchair. They were closing down one of their centers, and they had nowhere for him to go. And so
Good. So he came to y'all?
Yeah.
Chuck Meehan's a great guy, and I support Volunteers of America.
We're going to do this, so this is what's unfortunate. That amazing thing that just happened, we have to redo that part. Yeah.
What did we do?
Oh, talking about the specific instance of that girl. Everything we talked about since we came back from the break. So, what's her name? Johnette. We're just taking that out. That third one. I had miscalculated.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of where did I screw up. It wasn't her.
It's your age.
We did Mike for 2, Lennar for 1. You and I came back in together by ourselves. I thought we picked up.
We started out together by ourselves, and then we did another one by ourselves.
Yeah, which I figured we would. It's not, but we'll just see.
So what are we?
We're going to start again with her. Not start. We still have that block we did. But the conversation, the mini conversation we had, that has been erased. But the first block that we did, remember we did a block with her? The first block we did with her.
So we got rid of our 17-year-old girls.
And we're going to bring that back up again.
Okay.
And we should even be able to do it better. Only problem, yeah.
Alright, just to double check this, I'm taking 10, turning it into 9, and then we're recording 9 right now. Or we're recording 10.
That's right.
Again.
And that's the last 7-minute block, and 11 is 3 minutes.
Yes.
So the whole show is just 11 blocks.
Right.
Okay. Then we're in a good place.
Okay.
Gosh, and what did I say?
What did you say?
I talked about coordination with Goodwill.
Yeah.
Right.
About that. We're going to talk about the program and who she works with and things like that. And then she's going to give us examples. And then we have to talk about the fundraiser. So it's 3 components in there.
Okay, ready when y'all are.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Wood sitting in the studio for C.L. Bryant with Michelle, and we have Brenda Hill, the Executive Director of Women of Diversity. As we went to the break, Brenda, you were talking about some young ladies that have recently become involved in your program who came about as a result of not fitting the criteria of at Providence House because of their age, and you had talked about your cooperation with Goodwill and others. Let's talk about these two young ladies and how they ended up in your program.
Okay. On Thursday, I received a call from Caddo Parish Correctional Center stating that they had a 17-year-old that, well, actually, she was 18 at this time, that they were putting out of incarceration because she had served credit for time served on a charge that she received for sex trafficking. I think they minored it to prostitution. But the history behind this young girl is she was aged out of state foster care. And because of being aged out, the only thing that she knew to do was to go to the streets. And she began to sell her body to survive or to make a living.
And for people who don't understand, when Brenda talks about age out, once you reach a certain age in foster care, you are no longer eligible to receive funds. So the family taking care of her, as soon as the state didn't send any money, they kicked her out of the house. So
and there was no place for her to go. And this happened in Shreveport and Bossier.
Absolutely.
You know, a large part, it just shocks me because there's so many churches in the area. And as naive as this may sound to you, Brenda, that would have been my first thought, that she'd go, oh, I have nowhere to go, let me go to a church. I mean, you know, we have Judge Casey on, who's the new juvenile court judge, who talks to me a lot about foster parenting. We have
Casey Kilpatrick, yes,
who works with fostering parenting, because that's a part of this.
Absolutely.
So the money stops coming, and then this girl is out in the street with nowhere to go, no high school education.
Right, that is correct.
And she thought the only thing she could do was do something unthinkable. And there's something we can do about that, isn't there? We can help you help these women right now,
Absolutely.
today.
Absolutely. Well, as we're housing the women, we're also trying to get them set up with BIPSI, Bossier Parish Community Colleges, to go in and get their education, whether it be the high set or whether it be get into college. And this would help them further along their walk and learn how to live.
The mission of your organization is changing lives from the inside out. We had talked a little bit during the break about an upcoming fundraiser. Tell us a little bit about that, Brenda.
Yes, we partnered with Holmes Auto Group, and what we're doing is we have a Mercedes that we're going to give away May the 13th, and the funds that we raise in this giveaway will help us do the things like this: house those young girls, or house women,
feed those young girls,
feed them,
help them till they can stand on their own two, like a family would do.
Absolutely, and be there for them in any area that they need. I mean, they come with sometimes with not even personal hygienes. They don't have just the tools.
Because we're never taught these things, and I just see, you know, our show is very much into policy and reducing the size of government. Just because we cut off funding doesn't mean that the statistic goes away. These are still poor people that have needs. And we need to show solutions that are not government funded, like you personally stepping in and doing this, and these organizations Mike talks about. And then our listeners can volunteer. What is that website?
It's www.womenofdiversitymen.org.
A ministry like men.
Yes.
So womenofdiversitymen.org.
That is correct.
We're going to post it on our Facebook page. If you're a pastor listening, if you're a woman that has two friends, go to that website, find out how you can donate money, supplies, or your time. Because some of them don't have a healthy relationship with a woman who can kind of talk to them about basic things. If you're a doctor, I love that you do missionary trips in South America and South Africa or anywhere in Africa, but we need your help here to come in and help those girls.
Absolutely.
Vocations, art. There's no limit to what our community can do to help you.
Absolutely. And we are in desperate need right now of just volunteers to come in and speak. I mean, we started out with just my husband and a small amount of staff only because of the funding is limited. So anyone that would want to come in, help in any kind of capacity they feel that they could, would be welcome. We need all the help that we can
You've
get.
got high school student groups, Z clubs that could help in some capacity, because this is our community and we want to rehabilitate people. We don't want her on welfare the rest of her life. We don't want her in jail. You know, justice reform is about money. It costs money to house people in jail. So what do? You know, you don't make them not criminals. You have to look at them and change their life, change the way that they think. Because you yourself were incarcerated.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is hard to believe sitting here talking to you.
Absolutely. And then I also learned that incarceration could be, as I was sharing with Mike earlier, could be a deception. While we're incarcerated, we think, because we don't have those devices out there to get to, we would think that, hey, I won't do that again, or I won't the mind at that moment, of course, thinks that you won't do that. But if you don't have the tools, or if you're not properly equipped or exposed to the right education, then you turn right back to what you know.
You go back and do exactly what got you there to begin with.
Exactly.
So give out the website again.
Okay, it's www.womenofdiversitymen.org.
Women of Diversity Men, like the abbreviation for ministry. Womenofdiversitymen.org. How much are the tickets for that, Mercedes?
They are $50 a piece per donation. We would ask you to please join in. And not only will you be helping us to save a life, you'll be helping us to change a mind from the inside out.
Well, bless your heart, Brenda Hill, for what you're doing, and it makes me feel good to know that the other nonprofits, Providence House, VOA, and others are cooperating. And if anybody out there is listening, again, go to her website, Brenda Hill, Executive Director, Women of Diversity. This is Mike Woods sitting in the C.L. Bryant Show. We'll be back after the break.
You want to race? If you insist. That price I can't resist. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Welcome back to the final segment of the C.L. Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the C.L. Bryant studio with Michelle. And again, as we wrap up with Brenda Hill, the Executive Director of Women of Diversity. Again, Brenda, hit them with your website.
It's womenofdiversitymin.org.
And what do I do when I go there?
Go to the donation page for fundraiser and say that you want to purchase a ticket to be a part of the Mercedes drawing. Click on buy a ticket and put the rest of the information in.
And you can go into Homes European and do this in person. And then there's going to be other locations around the city. We'll have those on our Facebook page. Mike, how important do you think this program is?
Well, I think it's very important. And Brenda has brought up something. You know, I'm a foster, or I was a foster parent. And one of the things that I found out as my foster child turned 18, I never received any monies from the state. That was not the reason. I wanted to get my daughter on my health insurance. And she was, as you know, a Vietnamese citizen, or she actually is a U.S. citizen now. We were trying to get her parents out. But there's so many things that happen because they don't think through the process. And when a child turns 18 and they age out of the foster care system, suddenly I had problems putting her on my health insurance. She had problems getting scholarships because she was considered my child, but yet legally she wasn't my child. I can no longer claim her as a dependent, although I still am taking care
I
of
love
her and
the
her
way
family.
that
But
she's your daughter,
Yes.
and she always has been. It's been years. And
yeah, she's 43 now.
exactly, and that's what foster parenting is supposed to be about. And I think we need to do a better job of vetting those people and to see why that they want to be foster parents. It's really about parenting.
Absolutely.
Thank
No
you,
question.
Brenda. Women of Diversity, WOMEN, Women of Diversity, Women of Diversity Men, MIN.org. Go there today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda, for what you are doing for our community. Well, Michelle, as we wrap up, you have to start packing your bags because you're in the process of heading to Washington, D.C.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about, but the inauguration is coming this week. A new
This
president.
Friday?
I hope it's going to be a bridge building year where we all of diversity join together to make America great again.
It's going to be interesting, and as we go through the continual confirmation process, it's a never-ending
Well,
circus
let me just
in
clarify
Washington.
that. If you don't think it's been great before, that's fine. We just want America to be great, okay? We all should want America to be great.
You know, and one of the best quotes I saw, it's like, you know, we're all on this airplane together, and so why would anyone want the pilot to crash the airplane? I mean, regardless
That's
of who our
good.
president is.
But, you know, I have to say I was devastated when Mitt Romney didn't win last time. So I know what the pain is like. But what did I do? Well, you can see the result of this last election. Got busy, got the message out because I don't think my message has a color to it. I don't think it's a racist. I don't think it's elitist. I think this is a message for the people, by the people.
Exciting times here in the United States. As we wrap up the show, as I always do, I want to thank the men and women that serve in our military. I want to thank the men and women that serve in the fire and police department. Thank the listening audience. Thank CL for allowing me the opportunity of sitting in here, and thanks for this great nation that we live in. Stay tuned. Mike Woods, I'll be back. Thank you for listening to the CL Bryant Show.
All you sacrificed to keep freedom alive, and to the families left behind, we'll stand by your side, and the bond will never to keep.
Welcome back to the CL Bryant Show. This is Mike Woods sitting in the studio for CL Bryant with Michelle, and we have Dr. Jonette Magner, Executive Director, Shreveport Bossier Business Alliance for Higher Education, on the phone.